right. So we move on to a new atheist today. His name is Richard Dawkins. And the book of his that I'm focusing on is considered his most famous work, written in 2006, called The God Delusion. Okay. And he, just for your own knowledge, he's a professor of the public understanding of science at Oxford University. Probably he's the emeritus professor because he's 79 years old now. But he was professor at Oxford. His specialty is zoology, study of animal life. And his focus throughout this text is one thing, and that is, well, to destroy your belief in God, but to do it by asserting what I would consider his own religion, because he holds on to it very militantly throughout, and that is the religion or the philosophy of Darwinism. Okay, Darwinism, and the specific book that he points to continuously as the book that will bring about the raising of consciousness. Okay, and I have a task for one of the brothers, all right? If you could just make a little check mark every time you hear the word consciousness raising, all right? Because he says it over and over and over and over again. So if you can, every time I read it, if you could just mark it down, and then we'll see at the end how many times he says it. So Darwinism, he's going to focus on the book by Charles Darwin, which was written in 1859, called The Origin of Species. All right, The Origin of Species. And, of course, The Origin of Species charts out an idea, okay? And this is one big thing, that there's two things, and because in some ways you sort of miss Stephen Hawking, because he's so mathematical, okay, and minded at least, whereas Dawkins, he's going to focus on the origin of species. But one important thing about the origin of species, Charles Darwin never claims to prove the evolution from one species to another, okay? He never claims to prove it in his book. And yet, Dawkins is taking that text as proof that there is an evolution from one species to another. All right, without any helping hand. All right, so the origin of species, Charles Darwin actually doesn't give proofs for the evolution from one species to another. Also, Dawkins says in this text, The God Delusion, he says that you can't disprove the existence of God. Okay? He says you cannot disprove the existence of God. Okay? But he wants to make you an atheist. And he says that's the purpose of his book. And I'm going to read the preface of his book, part of it, to you, just so that you get a sense of what he's up to, all right? And let him speak for himself, all right? So he's going to focus on the origin of species. And of course, the origin of species speaks of evolution. All right, this is the famous text where the evolutionist movement begins, okay? And he's going to speak of the evolution of species from the process of natural selection. Okay? Through evolution from the process of natural selection. We can speak of natural selection as a process by which animals or species try to adapt to their environment, okay? Or develop through mutations, okay? Mutations produce certain qualities which help them survive, and then there's other mutations which make things better and better and better, okay? Until finally you have a transformation from one species to another. That's the general idea of natural selection, all right? Incremental movements in the evolutionary process, okay? Incremental movements in the evolutionary process. Okay, write that down because I'm going to, okay, so that's what natural selection involves. Incremental movements in the evolutionary process. There's one problem here, okay? Because it's sort of packed, the word evolution is packed with something, a meaning content that is actually shouldn't be present. Because when we think of evolution, right, we think of things getting better and better and better, right? That's the natural connotation of the term evolution. However, Darwin is specific that that species, in their changing from one to another, don't get better or worse. All right? It's not heading up at a 45-degree angle. Okay? Because one thing he wants to do, his overwhelming desire in the origin of species, is to say there's no purpose, intrinsic purpose in nature. All right? That's one big point. He's a complete anti-Aristotelian. He wants to say there's no intrinsic purpose in nature. So nature is not sort of getting better and better. No. Simply species are changing, and whoop, here we are. Okay? You got bugs, all right, like mosquitoes this big, all right? I tried a little genetic mutation on one on my wall last night, and it didn't seem to evolve or get better in any way. It just seemed to flutter around and wait 10 million years, and I'm sure, it'll become Richard Dawkins, I'm sure. But that's what they're not saying. He's not saying it gets better and better and better. That wasn't Darwin's idea, because that means hierarchy. That means purpose. And one thing also that Darwin wants to do is to get rid of the idea that there is a force operating in nature, a supernatural force operating in nature. Here's where Dawkins is really what he attaches himself to, that there's no supernatural force involved in nature, okay? And therefore, he's going to call the belief in God, that there is something going on, a delusion, okay? And so this is what he wants to do, and I'm just going to, he says a few things. He says the purpose, well, let me just read you, let you get mad, okay? Or just shake your head. And he says, my book is directed towards people who feel vague yearnings to leave their parents' religion and wish they could, but just don't realize that leaving is an option. If you are one of them, this book is for you. Okay? Okay, I get, who's the brother that's marking down okay, get ready. It is intended to raise consciousness. To raise consciousness to the fact that to be an atheist is a brave and noble aspiration. Really a splendid one. You can be an atheist who is happy, balanced, moral, intellectually fulfilled, just like me. You know, he doesn't say that. That is the, okay, here we go again. That is the first of my consciousness-raising messages. Okay? That's how he starts. That's who the book is directed towards. And I have my own ideas, but I just, one answer, I'll shout it out loud. Who do you think he's sort of directing his book towards? I mean, who does he want to buy this? Yes, young college students, all right? University students, college students, 18 to 21, right? Who are just leaving mommy and daddy, I guess. And that's the language that this is put in. It's not going to be a scientific treaty. It's not. It's not going to be a logical treatise. It's not. Okay? It's not going to be a philosophical argument. It's not. It's not going to be a theological argument, really. Okay? He is speaking to people who feel vague yearnings to leave their parents' religion. He's going to help you do it. He says, so that's one of the things, and I'll read a little bit more. Well, I'll just keep reading. Perhaps you have been taught why is that so important? This is how he starts. Perhaps you have been taught. What is he addressing here? What does he seem to be addressing?
Tradition.
Well, yeah, just like what someone learned in the home, and throughout the book, he acts as if that anyone who sort of receives a religion from their parents are simply like painted. I mean, they're like white. I mean, it's just stuck in there, all right? And you just go sort of unthinking, through your 21 years so far, and just, till you got to a Professor Dawkins class and have to buy his book, The God Delusion, and And, oh, whoa, okay, now, oh, really? He acts as if no one has actually thought through their parents' religion for themselves, okay? As an adult. And perhaps, he doesn't give this as a possibility, and perhaps embraced another religion, right? Right? Raise your consciousness and become a traditional Catholic, right? Right? What about that possibility? Maybe you could have thought through your parents' Jehovah's Witness religion and thought of something else better. That's not really a possibility. It's not really something he addresses. It's parents shoving their religion in the minds of the young people. The young people sort of blind and following and not thinking until, boom, the God delusion comes along. Okay, and now my consciousness is going to be raised. Okay. Okay. What else does he say here? Okay. Perhaps you have been taught that philosophers and theologians have put forward some good reasons to believe in God. If you have read read chapter 3, okay? The arguments turn out to be spectacularly weak. Okay? All right, I'll read chapter 3. You think they said something proving God? Read chapter 3. Okay? They turn out to be spectacular. These arguments, so-called, turn out to be spectacularly weak. But what? Are they wrong? Are they wrong? Oh, weak, oh, okay. But are they wrong? Okay. Well, I put my own little thing here. Little commentary on the side. And maybe you don't follow them intellectually because you have no ability to follow abstract or logical arguments. That's just my aside, okay? That's just my little commentary, gloss on the side, okay? But when I read you his portrayal of the arguments for the existence of God, you're going to... Okay, we continue with the preface. This is just the preface. He's telling you why you should read the book, what benefit you will get if you read the book. Okay, his best. Maybe you think that it is obvious that God must exist, or how would the world come into being? How else could there be life in its rich diversity, with every species looking uncannily as though it had been designed? Reading through Dawkins' book, The God Delusion, you sort of more believe in God than when you... Because what he drops along the way is just so indicative. Look what he says here. How else could there be life? This is the mind of the 20-year-old college student, okay? How else could there be life in its rich diversity with every species looking uncannily, as though it had been designed? Okay, well okay, stop there and your book's trash. Okay, because... You're right. Then he continues. I hope you will read chapter 4. The title of that chapter is Why There Is Almost Certainly No God. My quotation, my little gloss is, but what if there is? So again, what kind of argument is this? But why there is almost certainly. How can you prove that something is almost certainly the case? You can prove something's the case, right? But how do you prove something's almost certainly the case? Okay. Far from pointing to a designer, the illusion of design in the living world is explained with far greater economy and with devastating elegance in Charles Darwin's Origin of Species. Okay, let me just read that again. Okay. Far from pointing to a designer, the illusion of design in the living world is explained with far greater economy and with devastating elegance in Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species. Okay, this is my gloss on that. With far greater economy. In other words, it is short. Okay? Okay, so. And what do I care if it displays devastating eloquence? What do I care that in a book written by Charles Darwin in 1859 is well written? How does it in any way affect my immediate awareness of God? Right? Because I'm just standing here now, I'm immediately aware of God, meaning I look out and people are thinking, whoa, how do you do that? You know, and you're sensing, whoa, how do they do that? And how does the elegance of the text written in 1859 affect anything? Okay, here we go. Where are we now? Okay, chapter 5. Okay, so this is this is the preface, remember? So he's telling you what is in chapter 5. Okay? The title of the chapter is The Roots of Religion. The Roots of Religion. Okay? What do we do with that? Just take that. Chapter 5, the roots of religion. Well, first of all, I thought you were talking about God, right? I thought you were going to disprove God. Okay? Now, you're talking about religion, which is something on the part of the individual, right? Religio, from, well, it's an argument, but to bind, it seems like that's right. To bind us to God, okay? The act by which we bind ourselves to God. Well, so that's what he's focusing on, people's religion. And religion taken in a generic sense. Okay? He never talks about the possibility of a true or false religion. Okay? And listen, how can you talk about religion and how we bind ourselves to God unless you nail down first this question about God? You see, it appeals to those, my parents tell me to do that. we did that in our house. And how did you get a professorship at Oxford? I don't know. The Roots of Religion explains why belief in religion is so ubiquitous, right? Meaning everywhere. Okay, I'll write that down. Another reason why I should believe that God exists, right? Okay, thank you, Richard Dawkins. The Roots, chapter 5, The Roots of Religion explains why belief in religion is so ubiquitous. So it's all over the place. And I put in my little gloss, my nasty little glosses, maybe because it is almost impossible to deny the existence of a God. Maybe, perhaps. And then he continues, do you think that religions are necessary to have morals? I will show you, you don't need God to be good. Okay, you don't need God to be good. So he wants to say, well, you can be good, nice, politically correct, pro-LGBTQ, okay, and against global warming and not believe in God at the same time. Okay, you can be good and not believe in God. It can be done. Chapter 8, okay, he tells us what's going to be in chapter 8. We'll invite you to think about ways in which religions, what did I say here? I can't see it here. Okay, so it's chapter 8 is, what's chapter 8? Chapter 8 is, what's wrong with religion? Why be so hostile? Okay, so he's answering people's objections that he's heard, even from his colleagues. Like, why are you a professional atheist? Okay? Why is that like your thing? I thought you were a zoologist. Why are you on the rampage against religion? Can it do some good? And he's going to answer that question, why be so hostile? Why is he so hostile to religion? Because he is. He wants to start, okay? He wants to start, and I'll read that too. I'll just read it now. Okay, get ready. Brother Consciousness Raiser, okay, get ready. Okay, this is one of the things he wants to do with this book. My fourth consciousness raiser is atheist pride. Okay? Being an atheist is nothing to be apologetic about. On the contrary, it is something to be proud of. Standing tall to face the far horizon. For atheism nearly always indicates a healthy independence of mind, and indeed a healthy mind, like mine, okay? Then he rips on America. Okay, let me just... Reading the whole book through, I won't say hate, okay, because we want to accuse him of hate. That's the worst thing, hate. But he dislikes certain types of people the most, okay? All right? Okay, who? All right. Well, obviously, religious people, okay? Homeschooling religious people, okay? American homeschooling religious people. American pro-life homeschooling religious people. American pro-life homeschooling Catholic religious people, okay? American pro-life Catholic traditional religious people, okay? Oh, there's another one. American pro-life Catholic traditional religious people homeschooling who live in the country, okay? No, honestly, those are the absolute worst, all right? And at one point, and I'll show you the footnote, he says, well, maybe since these people just indoctrinate their children, okay, then maybe they should be taken away from the parents. It says that. It says that. There's a sharp little nasty edge to what he says in this book, and you have to see that as we go through. Okay, let me just finish his little presentation here. In the preface, if you feel trapped in the religion of your upbringing, I mean, would a 30-year-old, how would a 30-year-old take that? Just like, right? It's got to be someone 18, right? It's got to be someone 18. If you feel trapped in the religion of your upbringing, the answer is you have probably been subject to childhood indoctrination. He says childhood indoctrination, that's the second most prominent phrase, or other than consciousness raising, childhood indoctrination. If you are religious at all, it is overwhelmingly probable that your religion is that of your parents. Okay. Precisely because my purpose is that of consciousness raising. Oh, he goes on and on like this over and over. And then he gets to atheist pride and then what he wants to do is the same thing that happened to the homosexuals, okay? Where he says he wants them to come out of the closet. He wants the atheists to come out of the closet, okay? And not only does he want the atheists to come out of the closet, he wants them to assert themselves. Not just in private, he wants them to assert themselves in the public sphere. He wants them to assert themselves in society and form a group and form a movement. That's what his intent is, to form a movement and of liberation for atheists. And that's what he's going to try to achieve by this text. Why dost thou protest so much, Professor Dawkins? I mean, society is so secular anyways, that even in America, terrible America, all right, only, a smaller percentage of people even go to church every week. And why are you so adamant? Why are you so militant? Why do you spend so much time focusing on these issues in interviews and television appearances and TV shows? He had a TV show on Channel 4 in England in 2006, which was entitled "Root of All Evil?" ? And it was carried in the United States also. What was he saying? He said, well, I didn't quite like that title too much. We ran with it. But I didn't quite like it too much because it implied that religion was the root of all evil, and it's not the root of all evil. All right, I mean, it's not the root of obesity or anything, there's something that you can't attribute, say religion is the cause of, okay, or smoking, maybe, it's not the root of every single evil. But he went on, he has these shows, and that's his purpose. So, but what's the big deal? Why are you doing all this? Why dost thou protest so much? I think it's clear. Because so much of the scientific evidence goes against him. The current scientific evidence goes against him. Not only do you have the weight of how many 2,000 years of apologists for God and those who sought to point out the existence of God and used the rational mind to prove it, using various ways that reason operates. Not only do you have that whole weight of tradition against you, but you also have some of the latest scientific discoveries that cause you to think, really, there's got to be a God. I mentioned one already, the anthropic principle, okay? I'm going to get to others. The fact that it's called irreducible complexity, the idea of irreducible complexity, and the idea of that with DNA can be used also to prove the existence of God. And Richard Dawkins knows that. And he knows scientific thinkers have used it for that purpose, or to lead the mind to an awareness of this, or point out how something like God is needed in order to explain all these current findings in science. He knows that he's sort of fighting a rearguard action. That makes him almost more silly. That makes him almost more exaggerated. But we're going to see some of his arguments, and you get yourself into it and, try to pull them apart, okay? Because I will, here with my little nasty glosses, okay?